Milk, sausages, potatoes. I walked through the store, muttering under my breath. The day had been tough. My head refused to work. My concentration was at zero. I was dying to sleep, but I wanted to eat more. Back home, the fridge was completely bare. You could say a mouse wouldn't have bothered to hang itself there. With this job, I never had time for anything, and for zero reward. They're definitely going to fire me, I thought grimly, and shuffled to the third aisle in search of ketchup. I worked as an assistant to a manager in a small firm. Minimum salary, maximum demands, contemptuous looks from my boss. The dirtiest work always fell to me. Even the secretaries in our office were treated with far more respect. I had just graduated from college, and I didn't have rich parents to help me get ahead. My mom worked her whole life as a cashier at the local grocery store, barely making ends meet. I never had a father. He died before I was born. Mom never talked about him, and I didn't pry. I understood how hard it must have been for her, so I had to do everything myself. Get straight A's and give up parties with friends, get into a tuition-free university program, graduate, and find a job on my own. As it turned out, independence, brains, and diligence are valued far less than connections and cash. While I was cramming and passing exams, my classmates' parents were setting them up with cushy positions in big firms, despite their report cards being too scary to look at, let alone what was in their heads. And so, here I was, working 12-hour days. At home, all my thoughts were also about work. No time to get a girlfriend. I see my friends once a year. I'm just trying to get a foothold in this life, to find myself. It's not going so well. I continued to wander through the store, replaying the same gloomy thoughts in my head for the 100th time, when I suddenly almost bumped into a man. "Excuse me," I muttered and looked at him. An old-fashioned beige suit, the kind they wore in the late 90s, a trench coat from the same era, a completely gray face and dull eyes as if covered with a film. He stared at me without blinking and smiled. "Sorry, I didn't mean to," I muttered again, thinking this creepy guy would move or say something like, "It's okay," in short, show some kind of reaction. But he didn't move. He continued to stare with a smile that seemed glued to his face. I awkwardly squeezed past him, dropping a can of peas on the way. I didn't even turn back and hurried away as fast as I could. Shivers ran down my spine. Weird guy, I thought, already outside. And, just in case, I picked up my pace, dreaming of getting home as quickly as possible. I lived on the outskirts of the city, in a neighborhood people call disadvantaged, and for good reason. My apartment was more like a closet, but the rent was dirt cheap, though for me, even that was too much. At home, an unmade bed, another fight from the neighbors, and a thick layer of dust covering everything except my desk awaited me. I sighed heavily and promised myself I'd clean up on the weekend. Yeah, right, a thought flashed through my mind. I'll probably have to work all weekend again. I went to the kitchen, quickly fried some potatoes, swallowed them without tasting anything, and immediately fell into bed. How much longer can I keep this up? The thought ran through my head, before I fell into a heavy sleep. All night, I was tormented by nightmares. I dreamt of my boss, tons of reports, some screams, and that creepy man from the store. In my dream, he stood there again, looking at me with that smile. His head and shoulders were sprinkled with dirt, and worms swarmed in his eyes. Needless to say, after such a cheerful night, I woke up completely exhausted. "Good morning," I muttered to myself and went to get ready for work. Coffee, cigarette, clothes, keys, subway. I was on the train, dozing off even while standing, 5 more stops to go. The day had just begun, but I felt like I'd been run over by a steamroller. Suddenly, I saw something that snapped me wide awake. I even cried out in surprise. In the next car stood the man from the store yesterday. He was leaning against the window, staring right at me without blinking. The same smile was glued to his face. I pushed through the people and moved to the other end of the car as quickly as possible. At the next station, I ran out and caught my breath. Then I laughed nervously. What a fool I am. What was I scared of? So it's a guy. So I saw him a second time. It happens. Maybe he recognized me from yesterday too. That's why he was smiling. But his creepy appearance wouldn't leave my mind. I got on the next train and tried to push away the anxious thoughts. Of course, I was late for work. The boss didn't even say anything, just shot me a contemptuous look. I apologized and went to my desk. This time, the day dragged on especially long. Reports, endless calls, documents. At one point, I thought my life was literally buried under a pile of papers. My mood got even worse. As always, I spent my lunch at my desk. Coffee and a sandwich, my eternal and faithful friends. While I was looking through another folder of documents and chewing on dry bread with stale sausage, the office phone rang. Maybe I shouldn't answer. It's my legal break after all, I thought, but immediately picked up the phone, imagining my boss's face. And you, I thought with envy, you're probably sitting in some expensive restaurant right now. A rustling sound came from the receiver. "Hello?" I shouted. "I can't hear you." There was silence in response. I hung up. A second later, the phone rang again. "Yes," I answered again, and this time I did hear something. Breathing. Heavy, hoarse breathing with a whistling sound, as if the person on the other end had something stuck in their throat and couldn't get a breath. I suddenly froze. I couldn't utter a word, just listen to that sinister breathing in the receiver. For God knows what reason, I vividly imagined the person on the other end of the line, smiling. I slammed the phone down and ran my hand over my forehead. I was breaking out in a cold sweat. I went to the bathroom and washed my face, trying to pull myself together. It's probably just my imagination running wild, thinking of God knows what. Connection problems. It happens, right? It happens. I asked myself, hopefully. But I didn't feel any relief. My soul felt dark. For the rest of the workday, I wasn't myself. Everything fell out of my hands. I gave incoherent answers, messed up, sent emails and messages to the wrong people, and right before leaving for home, I managed to spill coffee on an important folder of documents. The chief's anger was not long in coming. "To my office, now!" he barked when he saw the mess I had made. A major dressing down awaited me. I heard about how useless I was, how hard it is to find normal employees these days, and that they only hired me out of desperation. I stood in the boss's office with a beet-red face, literally torn apart by anger and injustice. When I tried to object and bring up all the overtime, the lack of weekends, the nights I spent in the office, the boss just turned away, showing that the conversation was over. I silently left the office and, seething with humiliation, went home. At home, I hastily cooked some buckwheat and had dinner. Then, for about an hour, I stared blankly at the TV, trying to get today out of my head. Nothing was working. Around midnight, I went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. As soon as I closed my eyes, a creepy smile and lifeless gray eyes, veiled by a film, appeared before my inner vision. After tossing and turning for about 2 hours, I got up to smoke on the balcony. Usually at this hour, my courtyard is dead silent. Normally, I would hear the mournful songs that the local drunks love to sing, but tonight, it was as if everyone had died. I scanned the yard and suddenly, I saw him. Despite the warm weather, he was wearing the same suit and trench coat. He was standing right under my balcony, looking into my eyes. On his face was the same damn smile. What does he want from me? Why is he following me? This time, I was truly scared. My body was shaking. I dropped my cigarette and rushed back into the apartment, slamming the door behind me. What do I do? What do I do? I grabbed my phone, quickly dialed 911, and hit the call button. I hung up. I thought for a moment and dialed again. Emergency services, what's your situation? There's a guy is following me. Is he in your apartment right now? Is he threatening you? No, he's just standing under my window, looking and smiling. Smiling? I'm telling you, he's staring at me with this smile on his face. And before that, I saw him on the subway and in the store. He's following me, you understand? He called me at work. I don't know what he wants. You said he's just looking and smiling? So your life isn't in danger, correct? Yes. No, I stammered, already realizing how stupid everything I had just hysterically blurted out to the operator sounded. Okay, never mind. Sorry. I hung up. I paced the room for a few minutes, feverishly trying to figure out what to do. Then I quietly approached the window, moved the curtain aside, and looked out. What I saw made my stomach turn. It was as if a million icy needles pierced me all at once. I tried to scream but couldn't. My body was paralyzed. The lifeless eyes of a dead man were just inches from me. He was looking straight into the window, his face stretched into that smile. This isn't possible. I'm dreaming. It's a hallucination. The fourth floor. How? My thoughts were tangled. Fear squeezed my heart in a fist. I don't know how long it lasted, how long I couldn't tear my gaze from those eyes and that smile. But at some point, I broke out of my stupor and sharply pulled the curtain shut. I rushed to the door and checked that it was locked with all the locks. Then I hid under the blanket with my head, just like I did as a child when I was afraid of the dark and the imaginary monsters under the bed. Except this monster wasn't imaginary, but very real. I knew I had seen him. I hadn't gone crazy. I didn't sleep all night, flinching at every little noise. Sometimes I went to the window, but I didn't dare to look out, afraid to see those eyes and that smile again. I dozed off towards the morning, only waking up at 12 p.m. I overslept. I'm done for, was all I could think. Without even brushing my teeth, I quickly threw all my clothes and ran out of the house. On the way to work and on the subway, I was constantly looking around, jumping at every accidental touch. I constantly thought I saw him. But no, the creepy man in the trench coat was nowhere to be seen. Coming out of the subway, I ran across the street and flew into the office like a bullet. There, I came face to face with the boss. He looked at me with an icy gaze. "You're fired." But He didn't even listen to my excuses, turned sharply, and walked out. I had no choice but to start packing my things, and all this in front of the entire office. Dozens of eyes watched me. There wasn't a drop of sympathy in their gazes. To hell with all of this, and to hell with this job, and to hell with your office, and most importantly you fat... I muttered under my breath as I packed my things. Leaving the office, I was surprised to find that my mood had even improved a little. I felt freer than ever. Then I remembered that I had to pay for my hovel somehow, and without a job, I just couldn't afford the rent. The firing was followed by long, worry-filled days. I tried to find a new place and packed my things at the same time. The rental contract was ending, and I had no money. I had to go back to my mother's. I couldn't afford any other roof over my head. The two of us were crammed into her one-room apartment again. Mom didn't mind, but I was going crazy from the lack of space and the way things turned out. If it weren't for that guy outside my window, I wouldn't have overslept and lost my job. I'd be living just like before, I sometimes thought. Alas, I couldn't change the past. One evening, I came back from another failed interview. My mood was rotten. "Sasha, come here, quick," my mom called. "What now?" I grumbled. I walked into the room, and my eyes widened on their own. The TV screen showed people in emergency services uniforms bustling around a building with blown-out windows, half destroyed. In some places, a fire was still blazing, not yet extinguished. I recognized the building at first glance. 33 Metallurgoff Street. That was the building where the office of the company that fired me just a couple of weeks ago was located. And now, where the office used to be, there was just rubble. "They say people died," my mom whispered in horror. "They haven't pulled everyone out from under the rubble yet. And you could have been there, Sasha. How awful." "So, he saved me then?" I said, stunned. Who saved you?" And then I told my mom everything that had been happening to me over the past few weeks. Before that, I was afraid to even open my mouth, thinking she'd decide I'd gone crazy. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. The news of the office explosion completely threw me off balance. I told her in detail about the man who was following me, about being fired, about his face at my window, as I described his eyes, his smile, his clothes, and his appearance. My mom gasped loudly and pressed her hands to her face. Then she jolted up and started rummaging somewhere in the attic storage. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Hang on. It's somewhere here." "Yes, here!" She came back holding some kind of paper, a newspaper clipping. I took it in my hands and my vision went dark. From the photo in the newspaper, the same man was looking at me, in the same suit, but his eyes were alive and his smile was teasing and warm. On March 31st, 1999, in his 30th year, passed away suddenly Alexei Ivanovich Vorobyov, a loving son, a faithful husband, a devoted and responsible employee. His life was cut short by an accident at the factory where Alexei Ivanovich had worked for 15 years of his life. The factory staff expresses its sincere condolences. May his memory be eternal. "Mom," I said slowly, still in shock, "who is this?" "Sasha, that's your father. I took back my maiden name after he died and registered you under it." She gently stroked the faded photograph. "I decided to start my life over from a clean slate back then. This clipping is the only thing I kept." We were silent for a moment. "He probably came to see you, felt that You needed help." "Yeah." I didn't know what to say. Lost in thought, I went to the window. I glanced down, automatically, and saw him. No longer a creepy, unfamiliar man, but my father. He stood there, looking at me and smiling. I smiled back at him. If you like the story, you can support my channel with a like and a subscription. See you next time.